Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor. I wanted to show you a couple of things from the Swell conference that I think are important. They had this particular guy from that had worked for the IMF, and then they also had some central bank guys that were in a video from Ripple's Twitter feed. But I just wanted to cover a little bit about what each said. The first I'll cover is this guy right here, and he's talking about regulation and how that's progressing across the world. And I'm not going to try to mangle his name. His name's right here, the Honorable that. But he was the alternative executive director of the IMF. And this is probably the most significant thing he said in this talk. Cross-border payments is $150 trillion, and remittances generate $240 million. If you dig further into the costs, you can address compliance, FX, back office operations, and captured funds. And so just this number alone, to get this out of it, Brad Garlinghouse many times has referenced different numbers in the trillions of the market that Ripple is going after, but I believe that as Brad Garlinghouse has probably increased that number in his head as he's gone along and realized some of the different ways that Ripple and XRP could help the world to move money. And so that 150 trillion number is important, but I wanted to explain just for a second who they said this guy is. He was the sole U.S. board member to the IMF. He's no longer doing this. He cast the U.S. vote for all IMF decisions during his period there. He was with GE Capital, and he was also with Western Union. Another thing that I wanted to note that he said in his talk was that 7.5% was what the costs were when they moved money through the IMF around the world. That's the way I understood it. And so he said there's a significant amount of money to be saved by moving money digitally the way that Ripple and XRP is doing it. And so that was very important. But now I'm going to tell you the most important thing that he talked about. And that is at the 17-minute mark, and you can go to YouTube. Ripple's got a channel on YouTube. You can go type in Swell 2018, Regulating Innovation, a Global Opportunity. At the 17-minute mark, he confirmed for me a lot of what I've been talking about on this channel. He started talking about Liechtenstein, and he started talking about Liechtenstein in terms of that country being the model, in his opinion, of and where you need to look for where crypto regulations are headed and who should be followed, which is Liechtenstein. And he said, first he mentioned that Liechtenstein is a member of the European Economic Area. They're not in the EU. And I think that he didn't say it, but I think what he was getting at is that they've been able to move. They're not strapped by all these regulations that all these other countries are strapped by. And for that reason, they've been able to move forward with common sense legislation. And he said that their regulations in Liechtenstein for digital assets will go live. It'll go into law in November. And then Liechtenstein will have a completely tokenized economy. And I wanted to tell you that because that's what ultimately the world is going to be, is a tokenized economy. And you're going to be able to tell your grandchildren that you were there before they even worked out the regulation. You were there, and that's the reason your grandchildren's lives are so much better than yours or it was. And that is such a huge thing when you think about it in these terms, that we've been able to spot the ultimate investment before the governments of the world even pass the proper regulations having to do with that with what we're investing in, and that is what you call being early to the party. And you should be very proud of yourself, and your families are going to be very proud of yourselves one day, and they're going to tell stories about you, the same type of stories that are told today about the founders of Coca-Cola or people who supposedly got lucky and invested in the right place at the right time in the right thing and changed their families' lives forever. I wanted to move along, but I wanted to finish that by saying, yes, we will see you in Liechtenstein, because Liechtenstein, and I wanted to, before I leave that topic, I wanted to mention one other thing. Many of you that have not listened to me, you may be saying, what is Liechtenstein? I want you to look up Liechtenstein, and I'll do another video on it at some point. But Liechtenstein, for those of you that don't know, it's a tiny, tiny country that's kind of sandwiched between Switzerland and Austria. And it's a country that is, as I recall, they're neutral. And so, but you can drive back and forth into Switzerland without even having your passport checked, is my understanding. And Liechtenstein is such a small country that the entire design of the country is to attract the world's wealthiest people, the Saudi Arabian oil barons, everybody, the wealthiest people of the world. It's a tax haven for them. That's where they go to create trusts and protect their assets from ridiculous taxes of different places around the world where they live. And so, of course, now they see digital assets and crypto as a great opportunity to further lead the attraction of the world's wealth to Liechtenstein. And in one video where I was covering this country, I just said it sounds like a really neat place, and maybe I'll have to meet you in Liechtenstein for a beer. And so that's kind of our battle cry here on the Digital Asset Investors channel. Moving along, there was also a video. Now this is interesting too. There was a video on Ripple's Twitter feed as well, and it was the central bankers where they had a central banker talk, and it included a guy from Payments Canada, and then SAMA, Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority, and then Banco Central of Brazil, I guess, and they were discussing the future of blockchain and the same type stuff. And the one thing that caught my attention in this talk was what the Payments Canada guy said. He said that they clear $50 trillion a year. That's just Canada. And so between this video and the other video about regulation, just those two videos, there was $200 trillion talked about. That's money that's moving around this world. $200 trillion. But the other thing that this Payments Canada guy said that caught my attention, and it really dawned on me what we are in the middle of. He said it's been 10 years since the Bitcoin white paper, and he said we are now in a payment renaissance. And I'm here to tell you, all of you listening, this is a Ripple XRP led renaissance. And yesterday was the day that the renaissance officially began, because XRapid went live, and that was the day, October 1st, that the history books will say October 1st, 2018 was the day that the digital renaissance began, and it was led by Ripple and XRP, because it was the first day that a digital asset began use in production, in commercial production. And you're a part of it, and I'm a part of it, and we're going to be in Liechtenstein celebrating it. History was made yesterday, and we are at the forefront of it. But I wanted to make one final point before I let you go. And that final point is that I just talked about $200 trillion in money movement having to do with the IMF and the central banks. What I did not talk about, and what this does not include, that's money that's probably the movement and the things Ripple and XRP will be involved in down the road, because central banks and IMF, those are things that move much slower than the rest of the world. What I didn't talk about is the other trillions of dollars that are coming ahead of all of that. That's the speculation. It's Wall Street. It's the world's markets coming in. It's the hedge funds, the ETFs, the mutual funds, the derivatives, the FX markets, the bank-to-bank movement, the payment companies, the coil, you name it. There are trillions and trillions of dollars coming into this space that only has 220 or so billion dollars into it as of right now. I want to end this video by reading to you the definition of Renaissance. The transitional movement in Europe between medieval and modern times, beginning in the 14th century in Italy, lasting into the 17th century. Well, I'm here to tell you that Ripple and XRP are going to lead the digital renaissance, and it's going to move us between what we thought were modern times and real modern times in the movement of money around the world. You're a part of some exciting times, and I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your family and friends that they need to start listening so that they too can become a part of the Renaissance, because it's happening. As of yesterday, it's officially happening. Thank you for listening.